What I am going to introduce to you today is this Jewel Knight deck. Now, just before we begin, Jewel Knights they didn't really get much actual support, but there's a new stride which kind of helps, there's the 16 Jezum which kind of helps, and all those little things kind of help it. So I was looking around on YouTube and I saw that nobody really did updated Jewel Knights deck profiles ever since they first got support in the Fires collection. So I was like, might as well, you know. It's not my main deck, I only play it for fun, but you know, might as well give you this regardless. So let's get right into it. Alright, so getting into the list, we're going to open up with the grade 0 of the deck, which is going to be Dreaming Jewel Knight Tiffany. Tiffany's skill, if you don't know already, is an act you can put into the soul and choose up to 2 of your regulars with Jewel Knight in their name, and they get plus 3k each. So it provides soul, gives you a little plus 3k on each end, which is good, little pushing power as well. It's not on GB1 obviously, since it's a much older card than G-Break is. But I chose to use her. There's a lot of Jewel Knight starters you can choose from, but I like her because I can keep her on the field for as long as I need her in case I want to buff her and have the Jewel Knight in the name on the field, because that's what the deck relies on. But as soon as I don't need her, I just pop her in the soul and get some more power on my field. So I generally quite like her, but you're free to use the other starters, but this is the one I chose to use, and it's been running pretty smoothly as well. Now moving on to the grade 3s, I'll first actually go into the Break Ride, which is our 4 of, and her name is Pure Heart Jewel Knight Ashley. So she has the Lord skill, which isn't too important, but her Break Ride skill is when a Royal Paladin rides on her when you have Limit Break 4, you can give your Vanguard plus 10k in a crit. And her other skill is when she attacks a Vanguard, she gets plus 2k. So I run 4 of her because she's kind of an engine in the deck, in that we don't actually run Stride Fodders, as you'll see as we go through the deck, but we run the grade 1 that recycles Ashley's instead. And by recycling Ashley's, you kind of get Stride Fodders for a while. You don't really have to write into her, she's just there because of her name. But honestly, sometimes the break ride can catch some people off guard, especially if they don't know what the card does, because it's a pretty old card and it's a deck that not a lot of people play. And you know, her art's nice as well, but we just play her as a 4 of, also because she works for the cross ride. So speaking of the cross ride, we have Broken Heart Jewel Knight Ashley Reverse. So she also has Lord, and her second skill is if you have the old Ashley in the soul, she gets plus 2k, so just usual cross-ride stuff. And her Limit Break is an act, you can count plus 1 and unlock one of your Jewel Knight rear guards. If you do, you retire one of your opponent's front row rear guards, and you search your deck for Jewel Knight, call to rear guard circle and shuffle your deck, and you can only use that skill once per turn. I run 3 because I run 1 more grade 3 out of personal favoritism, because she's kind of the reason why I play this deck, and because it can kind of cheese, but most of the time you kind of want to be sitting on her, but like it doesn't matter which Ashley you're sitting on as long as you're sitting on one of them, because obviously the 11k power base is important. We don't really assess that anymore these days, but it is still pretty important. But yeah, so this is basically the old grade 3 lineup. Some people run the Legion, some people, I mean, you're not wrong to run 4-4 either, but I don't run the 4 of the reverse because I want to run my 1 SP Salome. So Salome has 2 skills. The first one is a Limit Break 4. When she attacks, you have 4 more Jewel Knight rear guards. She gets an extra crit and plus 2k power. Her other skill is count plus 2 Jewel Knights. Search your deck for Jewel Knight, call it, and shuffle your deck. Now this card could be super good if she was an 11k base. Well, maybe not super good anymore, but she'd be much better. But she's a 10k base, which hurts a lot. But regardless of that, okay, if we're talking about competitiveness, I would play her because of the actual Limit Break, which you can make, you know, not necessarily Limit Break, because we do play Limit Break removers, which are Jewel Knights. So the fact that you can have a turn 3, you know, swinging with a crit already can be threatening against some decks, especially if your opponent is just sitting there great stuck. And so I kind of like to run this as a punishment. This was a lot more effective back when good old Odysseus wasn't nerfed and everybody was playing Aqua Force all the time and sitting on grade 2, so this would be a nice little way to punish immediately. But it was also a good deck at the time because it was like it didn't care about being locked out of Generation Break, because Cybreeze wasn't around at the time, so you had all these Limit Break skills, you had all these skills that didn't need G-Break, and actually this entire deck doesn't need G-Break at all. So, well, apart from the strides obviously, but yeah, so the 1 Salome is just there. It's literally just a personal pick. You can play the 4th Ashley Reverse. You really don't have to follow this one little techie choice, but I really like it myself, so it's in there for a reason. I really rarely go into her personally, but I've already explained why she's there. Next up, going into the grade 2s, we have 4 of Banding Jewel Knight Miranda. And we actually have 3 of her. I just said 4 for whatever reason, but she is an 11k attacker when your Vanguard's in Ashley, and her second skill is if her attack hits a Vanguard and you have a Ashley Vanguard, you choose one of your other Royal Paladin rearguards and give it plus 4k. It's actually not Royal Paladin rearguards, it's any Royal Paladin unit, so even Vanguard. So I play 3 of her because most of the time you will be on the Ashley, but we need space for other grade 2s and, well, rearguards and units in general, so we only can fit in 3. I really like her art though. And like, her skill is nice, but it's not as prevalent for me to run her as a 4 of compared to the other units that we play in the deck, so she's just sitting there as a 3 of because she's good early offense and, you know, nice little on-hit pressure. Moving on to basically the best grade 2 in the deck, and one of the best grade 2s in the game in my opinion until it got nerfed, is Jewel Knight Sword Me. So if you don't know the ruling with Sword Me, it's that you can only play it in a deck where all grade 3s are Jewel Knights, so we do check that box, so it's all good here. But anyway, let's go over his skill. Sword Me's skill is that when it's called, whether from hand or from deck or whatever, you can count +1 Jewel Knight. If you do, you search your deck for a grade 1 or less Jewel Knight, call it to your graveyard circle and shuffle your deck. So it's an amazing card because you call it, count +1, search for any grade 1 Jewel Knight, and that's it. It's just always going to be good. It's always going to be there as a field fill. You can use Ashley Reverse into Sword Me to get yourself a grade 1. And there we go, off 2 combats, you got yourself 2 units. It's all good, all nice. So, you know, Sword Me is just an amazing card. And you have so many ways to get her out. And it's just such a good card. There's like no point really arguing for why it could be bad. Because like, there's a reason why it got nerfed. Because it was just too splashable in every deck. So they really had to nerf it. And now the other 4 of that we play is Altgaro. So Altgaro is kind of like a Sword Me, except not as good. So his skill is, when his attack hits a Vanguard and you have 3 or more Jewel Knight rearguards, you can Soul Blast 1. If you do, you search your deck for a grade 1 or less Jewel Knight in his card name, call to rearguard circle and shuffle your deck. So instead of counterblasting 1 with the Sword Me, you Soul Blast 1 for this guy, but he has to hit. So that's a bit of the downside, but it's not too bad because throughout the game you're going to be building up a lot of power with your strides, which we'll go into later. But when you build this guy up like hell, and people, you know, he might not have a crit, but you know, you swing with him, and if he does hit, you get a Soul Blast 1 into a rearguard, and you can actually combo off one of the grade 1s that you can call to get more power. So Altgaro is a really, really nice card. He's actually a pretty recent card, and you know, he kind of keeps my hope going that we're going to get Jewel Knight support sometime in the future, but we'll see how that goes. So yeah, Altgaro is a nice little grade 2. There's obviously others you can play, but I felt like he's a pretty nice pressure card, so I prefer to kind of go with the pressure grade 2s on this one. Moving on to the grade 1s, we have actually one of the most important ones, which was Cymbeline. So we play 4 of him. So Cymbeline's skill is when he's called, whether from hand or deck, if you have 3 or more Jewel Knight rearguards, you can rest him when he's called. If you do, you choose one of your Jewel Knight units and it gets plus 10k power. So what you can do is mid-battle, for example, attack with an Altgaro, use his skill to superior call a Cymbeline, or even in the same column, rest him to give 10k power to Vanguard or a rearguard that hasn't attacked yet. So that way, you, like, even if there's like a boosting column here, you can just call him behind the Altgaro, for example, or any empty back row to get a 10k boost onto another unit that is still going to be attacking. So I really like him for that reason, because with Altgaro he became actually a better card. So yeah, I really like Cymbeline. He's one of the most important grade 1s in the deck. He's just a common from G-BT08, so definitely worth it in the deck, and I think is a really important card. But let's continue on. I want to say this is a recent card, but Christine has been around since Fighters Collection 2 of last year, so let's just go over her skill real quick. So if you've ever watched the Jewel Knight fight that I have on my channel, I actually misplayed her skill once, but let's go over that so none of us make any misplays in the future. When she's called, if you have 3 or more Jewel Knight rearguards, you can count +1 and reveal a grade 3 from your hand. If you do, you search your deck for a grade 3 Jewel Knight and call it to rearguard circle, shuffle your deck, and at the end of that turn, you put the called grade 3 back into your hand, and then you discard any card from your hand. So it's a pseudo, like, you know how Stride Helpers, when you call them, you can search for the designated grade 3? It's kind of like that, except with a count +1 attached, and you get to have it on the field instead of immediately put it to hand. So I really like her because sometimes, for example, on turn 2, I can, like, let's say if I know which matchup I'm going to be against, I can actually, like, let's say, oh, I have my Salome in hand, but I really want to go into Ashley Reverse, so I can use Christine to basically reveal my Salome, and then call out the Ashley reverse, attack with it on turn 2, bounce it to hand, and then either drop the Salome or drop something else, and it's all good. So, like, I play 3 Ashley reverse, but I feel like Christine really helps me out in making sure that I have her most of the time when I need her, because I can basically reveal any of the other grade 3s I have in hand as soon as I have Christine to make sure I have my Ashley reverse. So Christine's a really good card, but we only play 3 of her because you won't be using her skill that much, not as much as compared to Cymbeline, but she's still a really, really important card. And now we have 4 of the Jewel Knight Perfect Arts. We play them because Jewel Knight in its name, so that's really literally the only reason. You could play in flipping Perfect Arts, but I prefer to stay consistent with the Jewel Knight name, and that's kind of the main reason. And we have a couple more grade 1s. Next up is the Limit Break Remover, so you all know what he does. When he's on the field, he removes the limit break of your limit break units. So he's really good because you can get early game Ashley reverse, you can get early game break rides, although they still take a turn, but you know, if you want to go for that. And obviously Salome's little crit limit break is also going to be active from the get-go, so you can use Sword Me to just fetch this on turn 2, and then turn 3 you can have your limit breaks already. So very, very important card in my opinion. And then finally, you might be conflicted that it's only 1, but we do search grade 1s quite a lot in this deck, so I don't see it as such a problem. But here we have Alwayne. So what this card does, it has an act where you can bot deck one of your grade 3 Ashleys from your drop zone to, well, basically to the bottom of your deck. And if you have a Royal Paladin Vanguard, you choose one of your grade 3 units with Ashley in its card name. So it doesn't have to be a Vanguard, it can be Rearguard or Vanguard Ashley, and that unit gets plus 5k for each time that you use a skill. So because it's not once per turn, you can essentially, while she's on the field, and let's say you have 3 Ashleys in the drop zone, you can just drop 3, and let's say you have an Ashley Vanguard and an Ashley Rearguard, you can give 1 of the plus 5ks to your Vanguard and 2 of them to a Rearguard. And don't forget that even when you're on a stride and your heart is an Ashley, you can still use her skill because the name is inherited to your stride. So even if you're sitting on a stride, you can use her skill to pump up even more power. So really like this because it also recycles the Ashleys, which can work as, you know, as your stride fodders, because we don't run any stride fodders in the deck because I feel like there's kind of, it's a bit too tight on space in order to be able to fit them in. So yeah, this is the main deck lineup, and now all we have left is the triggers. So we play obviously 4 of Bartram. So Bartram's skill is at the end of your turn, if your Vanguard is a Jewel Knight and you have 3 or more other Rearguards with Jewel Knight in its name, you draw a card and put him on top of your deck and shuffle your deck. So really good crit. I mean, he just has a useful skill that, like, you can actually call him out and then get a card back, and he has Jewel Knight in his name, so he, like, helps the whole deck trigger its effects. And, you know, it's always good to have a crit with skills. We don't really have a lot of those these days. And then I play 2 of this crit, 2 of this crit, so that's 8 crit in total. And then I do play the 4 draws, but I could, like, you can easily cut them down to 12 crit. The main reason why is because I couldn't actually find 2 more of each of these crits, but also this draw isn't too bad because when you're discarding for example, Christine's skill, you can always discard the draw so you're not losing out on too much, and the draw obviously has Jewel Knight in its name, so you can help that, it helps you fulfill your condition, and you're only losing out on 5k shield if you decide to call it. So, but do feel free to switch it to 12 crit, I really don't mind. I think it's fine in this deck, but I know people will call me out on that, so, you know, if you feel that you need to change it to crits, feel free. If I find my other crits, I might change the 12 crit as well, so yeah. And then obviously we play the 4 heals because G-guarding is fairly important in this deck, I would say, and you do want to keep your grade 2s on the field for that reason. Moving on to the G-zone, we're going to be opening up with the Jewel Knight Stride, which is Climax Jewel Knight Lord Evangeline. So Evangeline's skill is an act. If your heart is a Jewel Knight, and you have 3 or more Rearguards with Jewel Knight in its name, you can once per turn flip any G unit face up. I mean, you can do that regardless of the condition, but you pretty much need the condition to do the rest of the effect. And if you do, all your units with Jewel Knight in its name get plus 3k for each face up Evangeline in your G zone. So basically she's a field buff, and not only to your rears because it says units, so that includes her as well. So on first stride, if you just flip one of these face up, you're going to be giving everything plus 3k, and then, you know, this goes back to G-Zone. Next time you stride, you can flip up something else, so you give everything plus 6k, this goes back to G-Zone at the end, and then you can flip something else again to give your whole field a plus 9k buff, including her. So really, really big, like, it only gets bigger and bigger with every coming turn, so I really like her for that, and her art is amazing. Those legs could literally slay a man, so, you know, she's really the most important stride in the deck, and, you know, it's no wonder. But moving along, we do have some new additions to the deck, which is Blazing Sword Fetus. So Fetus' skill is an act once per turn. You can choose any face-down unit and flip it face up and discard a card from your hand. If you do, you search for grade 2 card, call it to rearguard circle, and shuffle your deck. And if the unit has Brave ability, draw a card. So we won't be doing the Brave stuff because we only play non-Brave units. And until end of turn, this unit gets a GB3 skill, which is Brave, so you have to have 3 or less cards in hand. When he attacks, if you have a face-up Fetus in your G-zone, you can choose one of your opponent's rearguards, retire it, and choose up to 2 of your units and give them plus 5k each. So basically, to fulfill this skill, you obviously first need GB3, and you also need to have a Fetus face-up. So what you can always do is, first stride the Evangeline, and flip Evangeline face up, and then when you second stride Evangeline, for example, you can flip a Fetus face up, and then when you're going to be striding again, you can go into the Fetus, you have the Fetus face up here, so then you can flip any other G unit face up, and the discarding a card kind of hurts, but that's also because if we play the draw triggers, we can just discard those, and so it doesn't hurt as bad, and reaching the Brave isn't too bad because you just kind of go really aggressive, so you don't obviously play him when you know you're not going to be able to do Brave, but because it's an on-attack Brave, so that's before your drive check, so you can still have the 3 cards in hand before your drive check and be able to pop a rear. So he's literally just here for his little field control. The plus 5k to 2 units is also nice, so I feel like he's a nice little addition. I managed to make some space for him. So yeah, the Fetus is here, and you only really stride into him once because you need to have the one face up, so you'll be flipping it face up most likely through Evangeline. And yeah, so moving along, we still have some more strides. Next up, we have the 2 Aerial Divine Knight Altmile, so not 4 because we play Fetus, so now 2. And his skill is, when you stride him, you have to persona flip him. If you do until end of turn, he gets the continuous skill that all units in your front row get plus 3k. And if the number of face-up cards in your G-zone is 2 or more, you search your deck for a grade 2, call to regular circle, shuffle your deck, and give that unit plus 5k. Most of the time, you'll only go into him when your field is completely dead, like through some field control or your opponent just attacking your rears all the time. So you go into Altmile, flip him face up, search for Sword Me searches for something else, and then you start going from there. So he's kind of the play you make when you really need to get back and you don't have anything else in hand, or like you don't want to use Ashley Reverse's skill because you want to stride, that type of thing. So yeah, I used to be more comfortable with him at 4, but now I don't know. I think Fetus does basically the same job, except he has a little bit of a field control effect, but you do have to discard for him. But the Altmile is also nice, but I'm just keeping him as a 2 of. And then we have one more 2 of, which I'm pretty sure most of you already know what it is, which is Saint Blow Dragon. Saint Blow's skill is pretty simple. It's an act, you persona flip, and he gets plus 3k for each of your rearguards until end of turn. Then, if the number of face-up cards in your G-zone is 2 or more, and the number of rearguards you have is 2 or more, he gets an extra critical, and it's a once per turn ability. So you only go into him when you're pretty much certain that your opponent doesn't have perfect guards, or you really want to force out a perfect guard for your later turns, or even this turn if you have some powerful rearguard stuff going on. But yeah, Saint Blow, I feel like he gets worse with every new Royal Paladin stride. Like at first he was a really nice card, but now he just gets worse and worse, so I can see him being dropped off eventually, even from this deck. But the crit is what makes him nice, and the little power buff that he gets, which can go up to plus 15, is also nice. So he's just there for that, but he's definitely a 2 of. You don't want to play any more of him than that, so let's just stop there. So next up for the G-Guardians, and you will probably have concluded that we play 6. First off, we have 2 Laser Guard Dragons. Laser Guard Dragon's skill is when you guard with him, if you have 1 or more grade 2 rear guards, he gets plus 5k until end of plus 5k shield until end of that turn. Not too great because you have to have the grade 2 rear guard on the field, which is very situational because your opponent can attack them, your opponent can retire them, lock them, whatever. Like the meta does whatever it wants these days. So I played 2 of him because I feel like he can still be pulled off fairly consistently, but he's literally just 2 of maximum. You would not play more than that. And the other, so very controversial G-Guard is Andragius. So his skill is quite similar, except you have to have 2 or more grade 2 rear guards, and then he gets plus 10k shield. And an even worse part about him that I didn't realize when I was doing this set breakdown is that skill is continuous, meaning that if you guard with him and you have 2 grade 2 rear guards and then you intercept with even one of them, he loses the skill immediately because it's continuous. So you must keep having those 2 grade 2 rear guards at all times when this card is in play, which is really dumb. But I feel like maybe there's a once in every 10 game scenario when he'll come in useful, so I play one of him, and I kind of feel like I should be using the new cards because, you know, we're doing an updated deck profile after all. Even though I didn't do Duel Knights before, but I've played them for a long time. But yeah, so one Andragius, but he's really not necessary. You could like switch this with one of the other strides or like a Cybreeze if you feel like, although I wouldn't really recommend that too much. But yeah, the one Andragius is here, but he's really one of the worst G-Guardians in the game. Now we have 3 Cray Elemental ones. First, I'll go over Screw first. Most of you probably already know him. So when you guard with him and you have at least one face-up G-Unit, you can discard a card. If you do, he gets plus 10k shield, so he's a more, like, this is a 25k shield if you have 2 grade 2s, this is a 25k shield if you have a face-up G-Unit and you can discard one. So again, we play the draws, we can discard for his effect. And then I play 1 Dismal, but I'm going to advise most of you to play 2 because of what the next card is actually pretty hard to get one at the moment. But anyway, Dark Element Dismal. I'm pretty sure most of you are already familiar with the effect, but when you guard with it, well, first it has resist, so, you know, it cannot be blown away with die kites or whatnot, but when you guard with it, you choose one of your rear guards, and that unit cannot be hit or chosen by effects of your opponent's cards for that turn. So that's pretty important because you can use it to protect a grade 2, and then if you need to G-Guard again, at least you'll have a grade 2 that's always going to be on the field. So, you know, it's that kind of thing. It's also going to be important against VMAX, you know, if you still haven't gotten over that. But 1 Dismal, I'm going to advise most of you to play 2 because I did get my hands on the Aglium's. So if you don't know Aglium's skill, let's go over it just now. So Aglium's skill, and also one of the reasons why I still play draws in this deck, is that when you guard with it, you can discard a card from your hand. If you do, you draw a card. So it's just a filter G-Guard, but I like it because it's a 15k, and sometimes like you go into the 50k G-Guards and you don't do anything else, like with Dismal for example. So now I can go into this just when I need to exactly block 15k and I don't want anything else, and I get a little filter, I play draws, I can drop a draw, maybe top deck a Sword Me, that kind of thing, you know. It's pretty nice, but I know that she's very hard to get, and I was lucky enough that one of the people from my Discord got me 2 from Singapore, so I'm very thankful for that. But yeah, if you can't get the Aglium, play 2 Dismals, but Dismal's also raising in price, so yeah, Royal Paladin does not have good G-Guardians right now because we play the 2 that they have and they're both horrible. But yeah, so I would even maybe play more Agliums, but I didn't want to push it too far, so yeah. So that's pretty much it for this deck profile. It's been quite a bit since I've done a deck profile because the decks that I play haven't been really getting updates in a while. So yeah, I don't main Royal Paladin. This is the only Royal Paladin deck I play, so don't roast me too hard. But this is a deck I really enjoy playing, and it's basically my go-to for fun deck. So I felt like I really should feature it, especially since I haven't really seen many people do it on YouTube after G-BT08. So I felt like I should do that myself. And yeah, so if you have any criticisms or tips or anything that you want to tell the rest of the people as well as me, do leave them in the comments. But apart from that, that's pretty much it for me today. I'll see you guys next time.